Computer. Helen, what's going on?
Hello, nice to talk to you. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So for everyone who has no idea why Helen Knight and Tim Wenzel are on camera together, we met like a little over a year ago, right? In Calgary?
We did, yeah, at a data conference.
Yeah, the data management conference, which was fun. You were like starting things off, keynoting, being extra special, and I came right after you and just talked about how social engineering happens in corporate espionage. And then we had dinner with the group of speakers one night, and we said we need to do something.
We just had so much fun talking. We thought we should really share this gift with everyone.
So I went to McDonald's and got a Diet Coke, and
Perfect.
now we're going to talk about imposter syndrome because does it only ever happen to women?
No, absolutely not. It should happen to everybody. Otherwise, you're probably
Not
suffering
human.
from Kruger, right? You're overestimating your own skills if you're not underestimating them. And I'd rather have be underestimating personally.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking about this. Um, the predominant theory is it generally happens to women. I disagree. It happened to me in a big way. And so we're gonna do like a little five-part series, and today we're gonna be talking about what imposter syndrome is. So Helen, what is it from your perspective?
It's two parts. It's kind of along a continuum, actually. There's the absolute panic. Oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm going to be found out. I'm a fraud. I better run from this room immediately, quit my job, go into the woods, and I'll probably die there. Right up to, man, am I appreciative of my introspective skills to recognize that I have ways to get better. And I mess that up. I fail here, and let me just go to my network and colleagues and find out ways to do better. So somewhere along that continuum is the place that imposter syndrome lands for me on a daily, hourly, meetingly
Hmm.
basis. How I'm feeling skilled, ready to show up, ready to make a positive difference. And it can actually vary wildly even within the same meeting. I can go back and forth with it.
It,
What is it?
it's
Mhm.
true. It can pop up multiple times throughout a day. And that's why I think it's important to kind of understand like what it is from a personal perspective because it's different for everyone. Have you noticed that it feels real at the time, but in retrospect, it's an irrational reaction or irrational fear?
Sometimes, for sure. Sometimes I'm like, how come I just got a fight or flight response like I'm being attacked by a tiger in the middle of the day in my home office reading an email that's directly related to me feeling fraudulent at the job I've been doing for 30 years.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a gift. So it's a fascinating, it's never the same flavor twice, but half the time I definitely need to fight it or I would be living in it right
And the good news is, through this five-part series, we're going to talk about what we think it is, how it's happened to us, how we tried to cope with it, maybe successfully, maybe unsuccessfully, how we've learned to manage it, and now how we recognize it and get ahead of it, right? Which I think is really important to kind of do the full circle thing for everybody who's wondering how to deal with this. So for me, I feel it less and less now, but it used to pop up almost as an accusation in my brain when somebody would say, "Hey, we need you to do this," or even if people would ask me a question that almost felt a little bit personal at work, right? Like, "Hey, Tim, you said this thing or you gave this report. We had a couple questions," and it would almost like I'm being accused in my own brain of being full of crap, which I do make a lot of crap up. Not
now.
gonna lie. Not gonna lie. The whole like thought leader, influencer, consultant thing.
It's the definition of innovation, right?
Right. But I have to remind myself that generally the stuff I make up is founded on a foundation that is repeatable. Um, but yeah, it can be that accusation for me, that accuser in the back of my brain is like, oh, you're done now. They found you out.
Mhm.
Or even if somebody's like, oh, we need to have a conversation. My mind can start to run wild about what this conversation could be, even though I have no idea like
Mhm.
what it's going to be about, but I feel like I'm in trouble when I most likely am not. Isn't that strange?
I I don't think so. I mean, it's a natural rummaging through the mental cupboards, trying to figure out if you're prepared for the event. And the more ambiguous the question or less prep that you have for that conversation, the more you're going to question everything that you find in the cupboards or the lack
Mm.
of. For me, I experience imposter syndrome the most when I encounter a really big problem and I'm leading the charge to solve that problem. Most of my work is with social service nonprofits across North America, and sometimes I'll encounter something that there just isn't a path for. There's no record or approach to it, and my response can range from like shaming myself for not taking enough courses, not spending enough time reading, not being aware of the entire ecosystem of technology at all times, even though it, doubles every 18 months. Um, right to just right now, I have the privilege of leading the strongest team I've ever worked with at Legal Aid Alberta and working with the legal aids all across Canada, providing access to justice. And every time that they're solving these problems in incredible ways, I'm like, oh man, they should be the boss, not me. Look at how great they are. Look at, and it's a privilege to be
Mm.
beside them and solving these problems together. But sometimes I think that too. I'm like, oh, I have no business trying to lead these great people because look at the incredible work that they did about something I didn't even think about. So
Almost, it's like elevating other people at the cost of diminishing yourself and your value. Does anybody ever, if you talk to anyone about this, do they ever say like, "Oh my gosh, Helen, you?"
yeah, yeah, I think it's actually really important to talk about it
Yeah.
because of how I have heard that from time to time. I think talking about my many failures and mistakes and challenges is really, really important to normalize it. We have such high standards and perfectionism in IT. I mean, the green light only comes on at the end of the day if every single piece lines up and works perfectly.
Right.
So um, we there's a culture of expertise and then we throw in a million acronyms where everything gets obfuscated and confusing and then it's too big for anyone to know, so we have these little areas of T depth knowledge and broad knowledge, but sometimes it doesn't even cross over with the person that you're talking to. The field has gotten so large that I think it's more important for me to call out when I have no idea, when I'm uncomfortable, to show my vulnerability, to normalize it for the people I'm trying to build a path for to
Hmm.
follow me. I need to fill this pipeline too with the diversity I don't see in front of me.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk about that in section 3, how we've coped and then learned to manage it. Um, I find that people are shocked when they hear that me, Tim Wenzel, deals with this imposter syndrome. And I'm sure people that know you well are shocked when they hear you deal with it as well, which I think is instructive. And so maybe we could kind of close out this segment loosely defining imposter syndrome as an underlying insecurity that spirals into an anxiety.
Yeah.
Does that make
I
sense?
yeah, it's a coming and going feeling of self-doubt, inadequacy, fraudulence, that we all have, and normalizing it and listening to it, sometimes it's actually right,
Yeah.
it is really, really critical. I agree. Imposter syndrome is your body telling you that something needs to change, something you need to learn more, ask more, hear more, listen more, calm down more. And the answer
Yeah.
is on the bottom of the anxiety. So you've got to sit in that anxiety and figure out, why am I freaking out?
You have to sit in it and figure it out. That's awesome. And that's what we're going to talk about. All right, Helen, I'll see you next time.
Okay, see ya.